Am I the asshole for not making my fiancé a list of things to do for our daughter? I, 24 female, and my fiancé, 24 male, had a rather large disagreement this morning. While I was brushing my teeth and using my bathroom, my fiancé placed our daughter to watch her show in her high chair and then just proceeded to watch TikToks for the next approximately 10 to 15 minutes straight while my daughter waited. I finally came out and saw this and asked why he hadn't made any breakfast for her yet. And he proceeds to say, "I was waiting to ask you what to make for her." Note, she is 1 and eats scrambled eggs on daycare days like today. I said that's a lie. You know what she eats by now. Anyway, this comment sparked a disagreement between us because I vented about his lack of assistance in helping to get her any of her belongings ready to go in the morning. His solution after getting frustrated with me was to tell me that I need to make him a list of what I would like him to do for her. And I refused, as I said I don't want to mother him as well, and as her parent, he should know what needs to be done. Diaper changes, outfit, teeth brushing, daycare bottles cleaned and filled up, etc. I tried explaining that as her mum, no one ever gives me a list. I simply look around or think about what needs to be done. So I guess my question is, am I the asshole for refusing to make the list? A commenter asks, is it possible he has ADHD? My brother does, and he genuinely needs a list from his wife to make sure he gets everything done. She makes a list, he completes it, and they are both happier and have fewer arguments now. Maybe OP's partner actually needs help focusing or figuring out what to do. And OP says, he does not have ADHD, but I do. Hence why it's hard for me to understand his lack of doing stuff sometimes, because I feel like my brain is always going 120 miles an hour. Someone else says, as a stay-at-home mother, I get it. I have felt this way. I learned everything the hard way, and everybody looks at me for an answer without trying, or worse, they think they know better and make things worse trying to force it. I have wanted to respond to my husband this way at times, but he decided against it because it just puts something else on my plate that I don't want. An argument, his negative feelings, my own negative feelings, the long, annoying conversation to recover and get past the negative feelings. I have things to do, and remember, you know your fiancé best, so you know what he's capable of or what his motivations are. For my husband, he's absent-minded, plus has a lot on his mind. I would just ask him or tell him what to do. If he's taking too long, I do it myself, and when I'm not upset, I tell him I don't appreciate what's going on and that it angers me. He's not being malicious or selfish, so I take the road that costs the least time and negativity for my own sake. Not the asshole. Long story short, is the arguing worth the time and effort? You also have to find a way through this without harboring resentment. I'm not trying to say he has no responsibilities, and he definitely needs to wake up. I'm saying you are going to burn out from this type of situation, and it will break down your relationship. OP says, I was also a stay-at-home mother for the first 10 months of her life. I'm now in nursing school, so we're trying to rebalance the scales since I now have more responsibilities than just the house and her. I just feel like this comment sums up my feelings perfectly. It's a hard feeling because you know it's not malicious, just frustrating. I just don't want that frustration to evolve into something bigger. Striped Badger says, ugh, weaponized incompetence. Be aware, I'm biased in my vote. That is a complete deal breaker for me. So I can't even imagine why you're engaged. Not the asshole. For my opinion on this one, I get that he has had 2 months of leeway to learn and figure out what needs to be done with his daughter while you guys transition to this new period. I'm not going to lay all the blame on him here and say that it's just weaponized incompetence, because I can definitely give him the benefit of the doubt that he has a demanding job, he's not home all the time, he's not able to see the routine that you have set up with this child and all the responsibilities and every individual action that is required to upkeep this child. That's fair enough, but for him to sit on TikTok for 10 to 15 minutes while this child needs to be fed, that is unacceptable. I think everyone can agree that that's unacceptable, and he doesn't need to be told what to do in order to look after his child. If he needs stepping stones for how to look after a child, he can use the internet that he was on in order to look up what people usually do. What's a normal morning routine for a 1-year-old child? What do you guys do? And I'll copy that, and I'll give my child the proper care that they need. But no. He's choosing to offload all responsibility onto OP, who needs to make a list for him. That's unacceptable. You've set that boundary with him, OP. You need to enforce that boundary, or else there will be consequences for this incompetence. And now, on to the updates. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for all of your responses. I just wanted to let everyone know a few things. We have been engaged since before she was born, for everyone asking why I would be engaged to him if he acted like this. I would also like to clarify we do already see a couples counselor to help us navigate our other occasional but rare issues, mostly in-law relationship issues. She helped explain the mental load concept, and I have to say, ever since then, things have improved so much. Ever since, he has really flipped the switch and helped me out a ton, especially in the mornings. He really is a great guy with a big heart, but sometimes a bit aloof to certain things, hence why I even wanted to write this post so he could see that I wasn't alone in my perspective of his behaviors. Lastly, for those wondering if I'm the naggy/controlling woman, the answer is no, lol. I didn't care what he made or what he took off my list for the morning, whether it was diaper changes or picking her outfit instead of making her food. That would have been perfectly fine. I literally do not care as long as stuff gets done. Happy to say that we are doing much better now. Peter says, calling fiancé weaponized incompetence is the best description of him. Inevitableness says, I disagree. OP's statement about how much he has stepped up proves that it wasn't weaponized. It was just ignorance. Explaining that they were also going through a transition period with responsibilities, it appears that it was early on and he wasn't in the routine of being a co-parent yet. Not everyone is an intentional asshole. Sometimes we're an ignorant asshole. And yeah, you can be ignorant. It's okay to be ignorant. We all make mistakes. We all do things wrong. And that happens. That's life. But once you make those mistakes, it's up to you to educate yourself and do better in the future. So I hope from this point forward that things continue to go well, he continues to improve his cooperation with OP, and that the child doesn't get neglected by him. As always, thank you for sharing your story with us, OP. I very much appreciated it. What did you guys think of this one down in the comments below? Our next post is by user Swordcat, and it's titled, Am I the asshole here because I didn't invite my father to my wedding? Because years ago, he told me I was no longer a part of his family. I'm 28 female, and will be getting married next month. I didn't invite my father to the wedding, but now he's trying to get in touch. I think I need to explain the context, because it all started when I was 6 years old, when my parents got divorced after my dad cheated on my mum with my stepmother. After that, I spent most of my time with my mum, but during holidays and vacations, I stayed with my dad. When I was 8, my half-brother Jake, 20 male, was born, and whenever I was with my dad, I was forced to take care of him. When I started high school, I had to move in with my dad because my mum had to move abroad for work. This period was one of the hardest of my life. My stepmother wasn't a bad person. She tried to include me in things, but she was very submissive to my father. As for my dad, he always treated me like an extra in the house, someone who didn't really belong there. I was constantly responsible for taking care of Jake, and whenever he went out, he would only take my stepmother and Jake, never inviting me. One of the most painful experiences happened when I was 14. My dad announced that the whole family was going to Disney for vacation, but the day before the trip, he told me that he wanted it to be a family moment, as it was their first big trip with Jake. So I was left home alone. This had already become a pattern. Trips to the beach, zoos, or other outings always included just my stepmother and Jake, while I was left behind. My dad didn't like me going out with friends or inviting them over. He said teenagers together only cause trouble, and because he was controlling, he would call the house phone at random times to check if I was home. He also had a trusted neighbor who would keep an eye on me to make sure that I didn't have any visitors. When I turned 16, living with him, the feeling of being an extra only got worse. Everything I had experienced during vacations, the exclusion and sense of abandonment, became part of my daily life. things came to a head when I turned 18. My dad got a promotion at work and decided to take a family trip to Europe. Since it was my last year of high school, I was excited, thinking I'd finally be included. But then he told me he didn't have enough money for a trip for 4, so it would just be to celebrate Jake's 10th birthday. I had to stay home. That is when I snapped. I told him that he was being unfair and that he shouldn't have given me false hope. I explained how I'd felt over the past years, and he called me ungrateful and spoiled, saying that I lived with him rent-free. Which was a lie, since my mum sent money to support me and I did all of the housework because both he and my stepmother worked late. The argument escalated and he kicked me out of the house, saying I was no longer a part of the family and not even his daughter. He literally threw me out and tossed my things onto the sidewalk. Luckily, a friend lived nearby and I stayed at her place that night. The next day, I went back to see if my dad had calmed down, but I found my things still on the sidewalk, and some even in the trash. My stepmother had kindly saved a few items for me and handed them over. After that, my dad never reached out, except to call and yell at me a month later when my mum stopped sending him money for my expenses. A few months later, I got into an engineering program in another state, where I met my now fiancé Mark, 29 male. He was a senior, and we soon connected, realizing we had a lot in common. We started dating, graduated, and now work in the same field, though at different companies. A few months ago, Mark proposed, and I happily said yes. I have social media, but I rarely use it. I've had Instagram for about 6 years, but haven't even posted 10 pictures. I think one of my relatives must have told my dad about the wedding, because about a month after I accepted the proposal, he reached out to me through Instagram, saying that he was excited to help with the wedding. I was surprised, both that he had messaged me and that he genuinely thought that he would walk me down the aisle. I responded, saying he wouldn't be walking me down the aisle because my stepfather would, and that the wedding would be small, just for my close family. After that, I blocked him. After blocking him, and inspired by reading Reddit stories, I expected calls, messages, and even letters full of insults like ungrateful or spoiled. However, the only thing I received was a letter delivered by Jake. Yes, we still have contact. In the letter, my father expressed how sorry he was. I won't copy the exact words, but to summarize, he said that after kicking me out, he lived a normal life with my stepmother and Jake. But when he saw pictures of my graduation with my mum and stepfather, he started feeling regret. He wanted to talk to me, but his pride held him back. He only decided to reach out now because he realized that his pride got him nowhere, and that he wanted to fulfill one of the plans that he made when I was born, to pay for my wedding and to walk me down the aisle. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I've moved on with my life, and his attempt at redemption after so many years feels a bit too convenient. Am I the asshole for not wanting to include my dad in my wedding, despite his apology? Note, my stepfather is an amazing person. He always goes out of his way to include me in everything, and my stepsisters are wonderful as well. When he found out that my father hadn't taken me to Disney, he planned a trip for the next holiday and took me, along with my mother and sisters. This and 1,000 other reasons are why I want to walk down the aisle with him. Edit 1. People are asking why my mum and stepfather left me with my dad and what their jobs are. My mum works as a programmer and managed to get a job abroad. She thought that it was best to accept it, especially since she wanted to save up a good amount of money to cover college expenses and for the future. My stepfather is a researcher, and he was doing his postdoctoral work at the time. The first person to talk to me was my older sister, stepsister. 2 days after I was kicked out, she came to see me and even stayed for a few days, which I can barely remember because I was just crying. But I didn't move in with her because she lives in another state, and I was almost done with classes and final exams. So, my friend and bridesmaid let me stay at her house. Her parents helped me gather my things and even set up the guest room for me. Turmeric Ping says, "Not the asshole. Your bio father's regrets are his problem, not yours. Your real father, your stepfather, the man who treated you as your father should, is the one who should walk you down the aisle. That other guy is just a bad memory to put behind you. Copper Feather says, Bio father treated OP like a pet that he didn't want. Stepfather treated OP like his third daughter. Bio father multiple times deliberately excluded OP from family trips. Stepfather went out of his way to include OP in his trips. Bio father kicked OP out of his house, yet still expected to be paid. Stepfather did not act like a douchebag. There is no contest here. Fiancé says, not the asshole. Your sperm donor gets to live with the consequences of his own actions. OP says, I liked this word, sperm donor. And yes, he'll reap what he sowed. Here Comes the Sun says, not the asshole. He isn't remorseful, he's jealous and has his nose out of joint that another man will be taking what he sees as center stage, and his actual role of shittiest father will be exposed without you needing to say a single word to guests or on stepmother. Sod him. Have a wonderful wedding and a happy marriage. Yeah, interesting that he can socially isolate you as much as he wants, continually embarrass you and demean you to your face that you're not actually a part of this family, hold over your head the trip to Europe with the false hope that, oh my god, she's getting her hopes up. It's going to be so funny when I smack her back down to earth and say, you don't deserve this, you ungrateful, spoilt little peasant. Now I'm going to bring my real family, my real son with me, and you can get bent. And then the the absolute cope of saying, oh, well, my pride got in the way. I was going to apologize because, I felt regret after kicking you out of the house callously when I caused this reaction from you because of my shitty actions. Oh, it was my ego. My ego wouldn't let me come and apologize to my real daughter, but, I really want to be a part of your wedding because I feel like I've earned that. No, you absolute scum of the earth piece of shit. You, OP's sperm donor, deserve misery and sadness for your pathetic little life that you're living. Go back to your hole, go to sleep, and forget that your daughter ever existed. Absolutely not the arsehole OP. He deserves it. And now, on to the update. So I'm back with an update, but first, let me explain why I'm using a different account. The account I originally posted from belonged to my friend. I'm not very active on social media, so I didn't create an account just to post something that I didn't expect would get so much attention. I thought there would be, at most, one follow-up to share whether or not I invite my dad to the wedding. However, some people started asking why there were inconsistencies, like the age difference, or why I mentioned my parents were married in one post and not in this one. Well, that's why. The story you read belonged to my friend, the same friend who let me stay with her. She also encouraged me to share my own story since I wanted opinions from neutral people, not those close to me or my dad, and wow, did I get a lot of feedback. Now, regarding the comments, I want to thank everyone for helping me see things I hadn't noticed before, especially in how my dad's letter was written. For those wondering, yes, he mostly talked about his feelings and how he felt. Very little was said about me, and even less was about apologizing. He also mentioned how I'm his only daughter, while my stepfather has 2 daughters to walk down the aisle, but he only has me. For those asking why I didn't move abroad with my mum and stepfather, they were supposed to be away for 3 to 5 years, with my mum likely needing to change companies every year. My stepfather was also deep in his research, so their lives were pretty unstable. At the time, I didn't anticipate how much I would suffer or that I would be kicked out. I think the rare times that I spent with my dad and the feeling of being left behind would fade whenever I was with my mum and stepfather. This cycle became my routine, which is why I stayed with my sperm donor. And for those asking if my mum knew what was going on, I only told her about the Disney incident. I didn't want to bring issues from one home into another. Now for the update. For some background on my mum, she returned 2 years after I started college, and my real dad came back a year after that. It was my sisters who attended my high school graduation. My mum now lives 2 hours away, so I went to visit her to discuss what had happened and to get her and my stepfather's thoughts on the situation. My mum said that it was something that I had to decide on my own and that she wouldn't interfere. My stepfather told me he'd help pay for the wedding regardless of what I choose to do. And yes, he's helping with some expenses. My sisters, on the other hand, share the same opinion as most of you. to not invite him and to send him a letter detailing everything that I went through. My older sister, let's call her Lisa, was the most against inviting him. Lisa was the first person to check on me. Today, I learned that on that same day that she came to see me at my friend's house, she also stopped to talk to my dad. She hadn't mentioned it before because, according to her, he only spouted nonsense, and sharing it at the time would have just made things worse for me. That's why she's completely against me reconnecting with him. For those curious about what he said, she didn't go into details, but mentioned that it angered her so much that she ended up shouting at him, calling him every name under the sun. She thinks this may be one of the reasons he didn't reach out sooner. She thinks that added fuel to the fire. We talked a lot, not just about my dad, but about myself as well. I realized that even with the therapy I went through during college, there was something important I hadn't done. I never truly opened up to my parents. I always thought that I had to face and overcome everything alone. All I did, though, was bottle everything up. Today, I was finally able to unpack it all and share my feelings. After a lot of tears, I hugged them both. And here's what I've decided. I will respond to his letter. Unfortunately for Mark and Lisa, it won't be the harsh response that they were hoping for. I'll take some of your advice and express how I felt when he kicked me out. I'll be polite, but honest. I'll also let him know that my stepfather will walk me down the aisle because that's what I want. I won't offer further explanations to him. After all, this is my wedding with Mark, and it will be exactly how we want it, without the need for justifications. I will not accept any money from him, nor will I send him an invitation. If my dad truly wants to reconcile, he can reach out to me through Jake, but only after the wedding, or honeymoon, and it will be on my terms. As someone suggested, we're going to hire security for the wedding, no matter how my dad reacts. For those wondering, yes, Jake has been invited. As I mentioned, we still have a good relationship, and he's allowed to take photos. New Target says, well done. He doesn't deserve anything, but you can be a bit harsh in your letter, even brutally honest. That's what he deserves. Corfiz74 says, yes, please, be very, very direct about what he put you through. He also mentioned how I'm his only daughter, while my stepfather has 2 daughters to walk down the aisle, but he only has me. I would tell him that he very explicitly told you that you were not family. So now, in fact, your stepdad has 3 daughters and he has none. If he's not around for your hard times, he can't be around for your good times. Simple as that. He is narcissist scum. Don't let him back into your life. He'll only bring chaos. Good luck with everything. I hope your wedding day goes beautifully. These kinds of people always want to be invited for the big events because they think they deserve the recognition and don't want to be embarrassed by people asking about their absence. But truthfully, if this was about a genuine reconciliation, he would do it on a regular day, not start making demands to be included in your wedding day. Yeah, as people pointed out there, it was not a genuine letter. He's not actually genuinely remorseful. He just doesn't want to be embarrassed. He doesn't want his ego to be hit by his absence and people asking questions. To me, that just makes this even worse because you then can't read his letter as anything but him trying to save face. He'll probably just disappear again after the wedding if he gets his way, being in the wedding party. And anyone that falls for that would be a sucker and would be ruining their own life for no reason. Or just wasting their time, wasting their emotions, wasting their hope, because that man is a monster. He only cares for himself. He only cares how he looks. He does not care about his daughter, who he has harmed. That is not someone that needs to be forgiven, should be forgiven, or allowed into your life in any capacity. Keep him well away. And thank you, as always, for the story, OP. I'd love to know what you guys think about this one in the comments down below. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode. If you liked it, let me know what you thought about it. If you didn't, let me know what you thought about it. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.